Welcome to the West Tigers podcast, episode 363. Again, it's a little podcast with a little bit of a difference tonight. Instead of the regulars on, we have Rachel, Jordan, and Kelly joining us tonight. We're going to have a little bit of a chat about the season just gone, just very briefly touch on that, and then we're going to start looking forward to 2025, because I think as West Tigers fans, that's where we're all kind of looking. How are you, Rachel?
Oh, well, how are you, Gary?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Jordan, how are you, mate?
Yeah, well, mate, how are you?
Yeah, great again. And and welcome back. We didn't get many NRLW pods done this year, Kelly, but I thought I'd get you on for the NRL pod towards the end of the season. Well, towards the end of the year during the off season.
Yeah, we really sort of dropped the ball literally on that one, but
I'm blaming you.
that's totally fine. I'll take the blame. I've got big shoulders. I can handle it. But yeah, we'll definitely make sure that we stick to a regular schedule for the 2025 season. But yeah, the season's well and truly over now with the awards night on Friday night, which we all attended in our finery. So time to really start looking forward to 2025 now.
And we'll discuss that awards night a little bit more in a few minutes. But I thought we'd start with my favourite game. Eddie doesn't like it, thinks I stole it from somewhere. I just made it up. The good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll do the good, the bad, and the ugly of season 2024. Jordan, we'll start with you, mate. You're good for season 2024.
I think most people would agree the main good thing that came out of this season was the young guns, the likes of the Fainus, Galvin, Laulili. Just watching those young kids and seeing our future on display gave us that ability to have some hope for 2025 and beyond. So, yeah, definitely the main good thing for me for this season was watching those young kids come through and show what we can hopefully look forward to in the long term.
Yeah, a little bit of a taste for what hopefully we're going to see, especially in 2025 and 2026. Kelly, yourself, what was the positive? What was the good thing from season 24 for you?
So the positive that I had was pretty much identical to Jordan's, the emerging talent. So seeing some of the young guys step up, Lockie Galvin basically coming from out of nowhere, really. We all knew that he had it in him, but actually seeing it on the field was fantastic. He took out pretty much every Rookie of the Year award there was to take out, except for the Dally M, because he got suspended in that Parramatta game, which is a huge shame.
He would have walked that in as
he would have quite easily. So yeah, I think that gives us, as Jordan said, a huge amount of hope, knowing that we've got Luai coming in to the halves with Lockie next year to give some more guidance and to really help guide the team around and take a bit of that pressure off Lockie. He's also had his international debut with the Prime Minister's 13 on the weekend. Wasn't his greatest game, but the experience is going to be, he's going to be all the more better for that experience. So, yeah, the Fainu brothers, basically anybody that debuted this year, I think we saw a real shining light. There wasn't really any debuts that we sort of went, well, nah, thanks for coming. You can go back and, we'll bring the next person up. I think we had a really great opportunity to see what exactly we have coming through the ranks.
There was a little bit of criticism about his game in the PM's 13 game on the weekend. He didn't have a great game, but is anyone concerned by that? I've seen around the socials a few people being a little bit worried about how poorly he played in that game. Jordan, you got any concerns after that game?
I watched that game from start to finish, and obviously I kept a close eye on our boys involved. I really don't have a concern. I think PNG specifically targeted him a lot in defence, and the start of that game, the first 20 minutes, anyone who was wearing the green and gold didn't look great. We were all over the place. I saw people commenting, once Brooks came on, the big difference was that in that temperature, the difference in quality of players and everything else, I think it was just fatigue that became a factor because they end up blowing them off the park by the end of it. But that opening 20 minutes, no one in the green and gold looked phenomenal. So, no, I'm not worried.
the big thing with the Brooks thing was that Jacob Little also came on at exactly the same time as Luke Brooks came on. So not only did you have a fresh 7, you also had a fresh 9. So two of your most important players, and Damien Cook's a great beach sprinter, but he's not necessarily, he's a little bit older now and he's getting towards the end of his career. So I think that's the other thing with that Luke Brooks difference. I did see so many Tigers supporters going on about, Brooks was fantastic, yada, yada, yada. But Lockie had been thrown in with those players for literally, a week? So building combinations and those kinds of things isn't going to happen in that short amount of time. So I'm not at all concerned. I'm just really glad he had the opportunity. There were "We Love Lockie" Galvin signs in the crowd. Like PNG supporters had signs that said, "We love Lockie." So he's obviously making a name for himself across the whole of the rugby league world, which is awesome to see.
Yeah, for me, I think your point there, Kelly, about it being that short amount of time with the side. He's an 18-year-old playing in that's a bit of a nothing representative game in October after his first full NRL season. I'm not surprised he looked a little below par from what we'd seen from him this season. So I'm not concerned at all. I think and not surprised that it was a fairly poor performance. It's just it wasn't a game set up for him to really do well in. Rachel, back on topic. Now we've gone on that little tangent there. You're good for season 2024.
I think the main idea is around the juniors. I'm really impressed with the guys that we blooded and the juniors that we've got coming through. But I'm actually really impressed with the crowds that turned up to the games. We had a few sellouts throughout the year, and despite the results, fans kept turning up. And I think we're starting to see the rebuild happening. We're starting to see what we can become as a club. So I was really impressed with the crowds, again, that continued to turn up. So I thought that was one of the better things to come from the season, despite us finishing last again.
On to the bad, Kelly. We'll start with you. You're bad for season 2024.
My bad was the inconsistency, the fact that we couldn't string together that elusive 3 games. Jordan, I know you tried really hard to get us there. We almost got there twice. But
I blame Jordan. He jinxed us.
How can we not win 3 games in a row? And how can we have not won 3 games in a row in quite some time when there are teams that literally go on, 10, 12 game winning streaks or only lose 7 games in the whole season? We didn't even win 7 games in the whole season. So that was my one.
Jordan, you're bad?
My bad was our senior players. The lack of direction we had from a lot. I know we've spoken it on previous pods before, but bar the likes of Appy, we really lacked a lot of leadership from that senior group, the ones that are on the big dollars, that are meant to be there guiding the young guys, and they just week in, week out got outshone by teenagers. And the fact that we were looking forward to the last few games of the year of our spine basically being the combined age of someone who's not even retired, it was disappointing to see our senior players not step up and actually provide the direction we needed.
But it was actually a little bit worse than that, Jordan. I thought Bateman's comments about the juniors being treated differently to the senior players. Over the last season, I think our junior players deserve to be treated a bit differently to our senior players.
100%. When that comment came out, it's like, at what stage of this season did the senior players deserve to be treated as such? It was the juniors who were stepping up. It was them who were providing the direction and the attack and the excitement for fans. I would have treated senior players in the exact same manner if they were putting out those kind of performances week in, week out.
Yeah, can't disagree. You're bad, Rachel.
Well, I've sort of interrelated the bad and the ugly together. So basically...
That's great. That's a great segue into the next one then.
So basically defence, leadership and discipline. I think they're all interrelated, and in every facet of those 3 that I've mentioned, we were extremely poor all season. Again, as Jordan's mentioned, our senior leadership wasn't there apart from Appy. Our discipline was atrocious. We were the most penalised sin bin team coming through the comp this year. And yeah, we've seen our defence. We were just dropping off tackles. We weren't even attempting to make tackles at times throughout the year. So they were probably my three all lumped together.
Okay, you're ugly then, Jordan.
My ugly was similar there. It's the lack of discipline, and like I don't think we have seen any team in recent memory with the amount of sin bins and send offs, and not just one sin bin a game, but where we had games where we had multiple. Literally, a player would step on the field, and then 2 minutes later, another player was walking off. I have never seen a season of a team like that in my time of watching rugby league, of so many ill discipline, and some of it was unfortunate. You know, the Olam send off. I don't think anyone thought that was a send off. The Appy one at the end of the year, that was just an unfortunate tackle. But then some of the stupidity, like Naden's one, the last game that he played for us at this point, and hopefully the last game he's ever played for us, hitting a player who lost the ball on the ground right on half time with a shoulder to the head. Like, it's that was the catalyst of stupidity for me, and I'm glad he hasn't donned our jersey again, because it was just dumb. But our discipline and the sin bins this year was the ugly for me.
And it's hard because I do think at times during the season, some of the sin binnings and the send-offs were probably a little unfair on the players. But when you start to build that reputation of being undisciplined and having those sort of issues, the referees do start to look for it. And I think that just compounded over the season, and then we saw a couple that probably didn't deserve a sin bin, and the Olam one probably didn't deserve a send-off. But because we had that reputation of being such an ill-disciplined team, I think that kind of just compounded into the fact, and the referees were looking for it. Kelly, you're ugly for season 24.
So my ugly is sort of similar to Rachel's. It sort of combines a whole bunch of different things. The discipline is probably what led to our poor defense, because we were quite often playing with only 12 men, and then when we were playing with 13, those that were left were always having to put in extra work for those that had been off the field for a certain amount of time, which therefore led to the poor defense. So we had one of the worst defensive records throughout the year. We didn't have as many blowouts as we've had in some other seasons, but we still had some games where, you thought it was going to end up a cricket score. We had a couple of games there where we could have won, but then, brain fades and things led to games just, leaving our grasp. And when you look back at those games, a couple of the errors that occurred in those games that led to those losses were, again, back to those senior players. So it all sort of ties in together.
Yeah, Bateman's game at Gosford against South really stands out for me when you speak about that, Kelly. The errors and the forced passes in that game really cost us any opportunity of winning that game, and it was a theme throughout the season.
Yep, that was the exact game I was thinking of. And going back to that remark about the junior players being treated better than the senior players, we really saw the juniors step up in that game as well and try to claw that game back. But it was those silly mistakes from those senior players. So I think it was Bateman, and I think Clemmer had a clanger as well at one point that, led to the Bunnies running away with it.
For me, the biggest game that really plays on all of what we've just said was the game against the Dragons in Wollongong. Like, I've never seen a game where we showed so much promise in the opening 20 minutes. Like, we looked like a well-drilled attacking team, to then just completely fall apart. Like, that second half, it felt like an eternity. I was at that game and I was just watching it, and that second half it felt like I was watching a 3-hour half of football. It was just mistake after mistake, followed by stupid errors and more. And then just, if you went to the 20-minute mark of that game, at no stage did we look like we were going to get beaten by 50 points, yet we did.
Mm-hmm. And Sullivan got binned that game as well. So, and it all comes back to that all three things that we've spoken about.
And when you look at Bateman as well, he's a vice captain, and he was actually captain for one or two games throughout the season from memory.
I think he captained that Gosford game.
Exactly. And his leadership as a captain on the field was probably one of the worst captaining performances I have ever seen watching rugby league. He should have taken the younger boys by the lead and shown them the way around the park, shown them how to play first grade football, and he did the complete opposite.
And lucky for us, he's still signed for next year at this point in time. So that's fantastic. Well, now, as West Tigers fans, really the most positive time of year for us is the off season. So we're going to forget about 2024. We'll have a little bit of a chat about the Kelly Barnes Awards in a moment, and because at least that's a positive part of the season. But we're going to leave that negative stuff for 2024 in the rearview mirror right now. We will have a look at the Kelly Barnes, well, not the Kelly Barnes Awards night now. It's now called the Awards Gala night, because they do the NRLW Awards at that as well. The interesting one for me coming out of that was Sam Fainu winning the Kelly Barnes Award. Were you guys surprised by that? Any thoughts on it, Rach?
I probably went into the awards night thinking Galvin would clean sweep the three main awards, only because he had such a great season. Arpey fell away a little bit at the end of the season. But when Sam got announced as the Player of the Year, I probably wasn't overly surprised because I think he was one of our most consistent players. And I do feel the three players that won the main awards are probably our three best players throughout the year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I do find it interesting that Appy won the Players' Player Award. I think when you have a look at how he plays on the field and the role he plays in the team, Kelly, I think it's fairly understandable why he would win a player-voted Player of the Season award.
Yeah, I definitely see that. He's the person that everybody looks to for that guidance, for that leadership. I think he's the most experienced player on our team at the moment. I could be wrong in terms of actual games.
He would
but it'd be
close.
Yeah. But he's that guy that you see that, Benji talks about wanting to pull him off during games, and he's just like, nah, I'm staying out here. I'm with the boys. I'm in it for the long run, which has probably been to his detriment at some points. But he's definitely got that passion and that drive, and that's what we need as somebody leading these young boys coming forward. And for him to have the rest of those players vote him for that makes me really excited that they see it as well, and that they're buying into it.
So, Jordan, Sam won the Player of the Year award. Your thoughts on that, and what did you think of his season?
Well, it was funny. Like when they started to announce it, and they mentioned the 10 points, and I automatically thought Appy had gotten it over Galvin. But when they announced it, I remember looking at my wife and going, "You know what? That actually makes complete sense." As Kelly said, he was very consistent. His actions throughout every game were the same. I can't honestly remember him having a bad game. His effort areas, his passion, his defense, his attack, he was consistent, and he probably, well, no, not probably, he did deserve it, because he was probably that one player that, without a doubt, and that's probably why a lot of fans didn't actually think of it, because he might not have stood out all the time, but his effort was so consistent that it went unnoticed in a lot of ways. He was so consistently at his level and at his peak that fans just went, yeah, we expect that of him now, and it just continued. And when he won it, it made complete and utter sense to me, and I thought he had a great first season with us.
Sorry, just on that, while we're talking about that, I thought most fans thought that Latu would probably be the better of the Fainu brothers buys this season. And not that Latu's had a terrible season. It's been riddled by injury. But Sam sort of came out of the woodworks a little bit. I don't think we were expecting him to have the season that he's already had with us. So I think maybe that's also why we might be a little bit surprised, or why we're not so much surprised, but we probably weren't expecting him to have a consistent season like he has had. I think we all thought Latu was probably the better of the signings at this stage.
100%. Yeah. He was the biggest thing with Sam, though, that I think he's that type of player you want behind you.
Yeah.
He's that guy that you want in the trenches with you because you know that when you turn around, he's going to be there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. I think a lot of us didn't think it was going to be him, but I think all the Fainus have been brilliant, and I hope we can retain Sione for next year.
Yeah, it's almost been like the best bonus buy ever. Like buy one get one free. Like we bought Latu in with the hope of him, being a superstar in the halves, and we've managed to find a superstar in Sam. And a little sneaky side thing, we'd seen Sam at all the NRLW games, and we couldn't work out why. And then on Friday night, we found out that he and Selma are a couple, which is really cute. And they were just so cute. And Sam, when he made his acceptance speech, I'm using air quotes here because he couldn't get 3 words out of him in a row. He's so humble, and he is just, all 3 of them are the nicest guys to talk to. We had a bit of a chat to him after while we were getting photos. He let everybody hold the trophies and the medals and things. And yeah, so I think he's definitely been a surprise packet in terms of what we've got from him. But then what we got from him, it wasn't a surprise that he then received the award.
For me, one of the interesting points about it is think back to those couple of preseason games he played at the start of the year, and I thought he was going to be playing in the middle. I really thought he was going to be a middle, and I was a little bit surprised when we moved him to that edge, and then the impact he had as soon as we moved him to that edge was really impressive to see. But he was also really ill-disciplined in those preseason games, and I was really concerned about that. And for a player that I had those concerns about in probably the most ill-disciplined side in the comp, well, proven most ill-disciplined side in the comp, I thought his discipline for the rest of the season after that was pretty good as well. So I was quite surprised that he won it. I will say, Kelly and Rach and I were all sitting at the same table, and before the award was announced, I did pick that it wasn't Galvin because the other major award winner on the night, Sarah Togatuki, won the NRLW Player of the Year, and so congratulations to her for that as well. I think that's a wonderful achievement from her. I think she's been our best player in the NRLW for the past 2 seasons, so I was really pleased to see her win that award. But they kept her on stage for a photo, and Lockie Galvin was in Papua New Guinea, so he couldn't have the photo taken. So they gave it away for me a little bit just before they announced that it wasn't Lockie Galvin. So I'm going to take a bit of credit for that one, Kelly. It was you I said that to, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
Who said you're just good looks, Gary?
Good looks, super intelligence, great pod host. Like, Eddie's in trouble. I think that's why he's taking like the next 6 months off, because he knows his position's in danger on this podcast. We'll move on to season 2025. I thought I'd start looking at season 25 with the rumors around today. There was a Michael Chalmers and Danny Wildler article that came out this afternoon, and I'm probably going to throw to Jordan first on this one because I'm fairly sure of the reaction I'm going to get to this article. Rumors of AD to the Dragons, Jordan, your thoughts?
Mate, I'll start an Uber service to Cogra just to get him there. I will. I will drive the man there himself. Look, if he can get a long-term deal at the Dragons, I wouldn't stand in his way. I think it was a knee-jerk reaction to re-sign him when we did, as it was.
But
did not expect...
How was it a knee-jerk reaction? They signed him before he even came back. It's a really weird decision for me.
It was. I did not understand it. I did not expect to see that email. I do not understand why we did. But if he can get even just an extra year out of the Dragons, I say take it. He wants to be a halfback. It was even mentioned today that he wants to be a halfback. He doesn't want to be a centre. I don't want him in the centres. He's a terrible defender. I really, really hope something can come of it. And if they can get the best out of him, just say, yep, buy. And as taking Kelly's words before, buy one, get one free. They can take him and Sullivan, and I will drive them both there and pack their bags. It'll be full service. I'll drive them to the door. No problem.
If he does end up going, it is a little bit of a sad end for him at the club, Rach. I thought a couple of years ago, a lot of people viewed him as the heart and soul of the club and the commitment. And a couple of injuries later, some poor form later, it looks like he's not in the future plans of the club. And I guess that is a little bit sad, Rachel.
Yeah, I can understand that sort of things. He was probably a little bit of a favourite back in the days coming through because he did have that heart and commitment that you're talking about. What really put me off was some of the comments he made earlier this year about the juniors, and how if they weren't stepping up, then they, could basically move away. When it was the senior players, as we've mentioned before, that weren't stepping up. And when I've looked at our squad coming through for next year, I actually don't know where he fits in within the team. So I'm actually happy to see him go. And if he goes down to the Dragons and has a little bit of a success down there, good on him, because I don't think he's necessarily a bad guy, but I just don't think he's the best fit for our club anymore moving forward.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can really disagree with that. And I don't think there's many fans now that will be disappointed to see him pick up a contract somewhere else. I think it's time for him to move on. I probably thought that a little longer than most people. But I think it's really crucial that we free up these roster spots because
We need to free up some cash.
yeah, the cash I don't think as is important as roster spots.
Yeah.
We're sitting at 30. I have seen some people saying in the last couple of days that we're actually sitting at 31 players for next season because Toomuth has a player option in his favour that he can still possibly take up, which puts us in an even worse spot because we'll come back to the players that we think we need to move on and changes we need to make the roster a little bit later in the show. But I think it's crucially important, Kelly, that we free up some roster spots so we can transition this roster a little bit more before we head into season 2025.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We've spoken time and time again about key positions where we're lacking. I think a few of them we're starting to find solutions for, but still blatantly, obviously missing somebody big and hard and aggressive in the middle. It's just something that we seriously lack in the side at the moment. And I can't really see any of the young guys that we've got coming up filling that spot within the next 12 months. I think players like Jordan and some of the other young guys that potentially could play in the middle, I think they still need quite a bit of time to stop growing. Like Jordan's only 19 himself, and I really feel sorry.
And
for
there
his
have
mum.
been rumours around Jordan Miller in the past couple of days as well about him no longer being at the club.
Oh, I haven't heard those ones.
I hadn't heard those ones either. All I knew was he was selected to play for Fiji this weekend. So interesting, yeah. Yeah, I definitely need to get rid of at least one or two to be able to bring in that enforcer, that aggressive A grade. What does Steve call them? The A-type predator.
Jordan, having a look at that, you have a look at our roster. It's quite full at the moment. We do need to move some players on. Where are you looking? Who are you kind of tapping on the shoulder and trying to get out of the club during this off-season? Because I think it's crucial.
There's some obvious ones that have been clearly mentioned before. We know the club has tried on numerous occasions to move them on. You've got the likes of Sullivan, Naden, now Dewey's obviously name out there, Toomuth. Based on Toomuth's deal, I wouldn't be surprised if the club just paid him out and let him go to free up that spot. It wouldn't be a massive amount on the cap. Clemmer is another one I would allow to go, but only if we picked up another forward. There's a lot of dead weight we need to clear. There's at least 5 or 6 that should hopefully be gone before the start of the 2025 season. But so far, there just hasn't been enough interest. Like we thought we were going to get rid of a couple of them to the UK, but they dug their heels in and they decided to stay. Charlie Stain, there's been tidbits about him possibly not hanging around either. But yeah, I would at least be hopeful that we could clear about 5 spots before the 2025 season.
Can we add Bateman to that list?
I'd love to add Bateman to that list, but I just don't see anyone really pick him up. The only semi thing I had heard was that South Sydney was potentially interested in him with his connections with Bennett. But
Actually, I heard that as well. Yeah.
yeah, I do not see anyone willing, if his salary, if what his salary is actually being reported is anywhere near true, we are going to have to chip in a hell of a lot of money just to fob him off for another 3 years.
Yeah, it was always a signing I was worried about at the time. Um, I thought it had potential to be at least slightly too long, and really we haven't got to like he's been here 2 years, and we haven't got a full season out of him. He showed up late for last season, and then the season just gone. He he left early, so at the moment we've got him as a casual employee of the club. Like it's just not good enough, and I think we need better moving forward. Uh, Jordan has us losing 5 players over the offseason, Kelly. I don't think we're going to be quite that lucky. I don't think we're going to be able to move on 5. I think it's a bit like his prediction of 3 in a row wins. I think it's just being a little too hopeful,
I've
Jordan.
I've got more predictions for later, Gary. Don't you worry.
Fantastic. I'm hanging out for those. So, where do you think we need to target? If we free up a few roster spots, I'm hopeful we can free up 2, maybe 3 roster spots over this off season. Where are you targeting, Kelly? And do you have any names of people that you would target for those positions?
I knew you were going to ask me names, so no, I
know.
don't have names.
Come on. Well, I'll make Rach give the names. You just target the positions then.
Yeah, well, we've already mentioned
Thanks, Gary.
we need a prop. We need a big, hard, a Fanua Blake, but we can't get him because we missed the boat on that one.
Do you think that was a
We
mistake? We're pulling out of that race?
It's a hard one because Rach and I both had him in our super coach team this year, and quite often we had him as captain, and he would have a blinder one week and then a shocker the next week. So you would captain him, and then uncaptain him. So he wasn't overly consistent this year. So it's really hard to say.
Look, for me, I think we kind of prioritize Steph, and the season he had and the way that went. I'm sure it's probably a decision that they may regret now, not going a little bit harder for Noah Blake, Jordan.
I know the talks with Fanua Blake and Luai and everything were around the similar time, and I know we pulled out due to, once Richo and everything sort of got his feet under the desk. It was, I think there were 2 steps behind that. I think one of it was a power play move because I think it was more Fulton pushing for Fanua Blake. So
Correct.
I think that was more of a power play move to sort of kind of stem that control in relation to that. I would have loved Fanua Blake. I think in relation to props, now that we've missed out on Horsburgh and that doesn't seem to be happening, I really think that enforcer prop is going to have to wait till 2026. Unless something happens with another team or we can jag one of those props for 26 and get an early release for 25.
Which we're 2 weeks away, Jordan, from being able to sign players for 26.
Well, there's some decent props coming off. Like you've got Hazleton, Leo Thompson, although I think that's going to be a bidding war we don't want to get involved in. You've got Xavier Wilson, David Mawali. There are some decent, big, aggressive props that are coming available in a couple of weeks' time that, especially with the team like the Sharks, I don't think they're going to be able to offer Hazleton the kind of money he's going to command. So I would be having a decent crack at him come November 1 and hopefully be able to jag him for 25 if we were able to sign him for 26.
That doesn't fill up your 5 roster spots you've cleared, though, Jordan.
Oh, I've got other names. I've got a list right here in front of me of other players we got. I want Katoni Staggs. I want that to be my priority.
Didn't he just sign with somebody? I swear I saw that this week. Sorry.
He hasn't yet. The Broncos are trying to sign him because they're sort of kind of balancing it. I think Broncos are holding out. If they can sign Staggs, they'll let Cobbo go. But if Staggs doesn't stay, they'll try and re-sign Cobbo. But if he is still free come November 1, I would have a good contract on the table for him. 26, open centre spot. It's all yours.
Rach, having a look at, we've spoken a lot about prop. As I said, Jordan's freed up 5 spots. What other positions do you think we need to target?
I still think we need some outside backs. I think we need some speed in the outside backs, but we also need players that can run the ball back with a little bit more gusto, a little bit more heart, a little bit. I think we're going to have that next year, a little bit in skeleton. But outside of that, I'm not sure who's going to bring that. Maybe at Taruva, but outside of that, I think we still need some more players that can run the ball back a little bit harder. And I actually don't know who's on the market that we can target for that.
For me, I think it's really crucial. I'm looking at, I agree, props, something we need to get sorted. I think between now and the start of 26, we need 2 props. I have concerns about Fanua Pole staying. The fact that he hasn't re-signed yet is a huge worry for me. I think he's a really good player. He does have a few defensive issues, but that's a contract I'd like to see us get sorted in the next 2 weeks. I don't really want him going to open market. I think we need to start building this club, and we've just lost Steph. Our front row stocks, if you have a look at it, Clem, has 1 season left, so I'm not too fussed on his form, but that's going to be a massive change in that position. I think we need at least 2 props between now and 2026. I do like the idea, Jordan, of Leo Thompson. For me, I think that's a guy we should be targeting. And I do think he's on about 350,000 now. If you get him for 2026 on an upgraded deal to that, I think there's going to be a lot of desire from him to come across early. So if that's a deal you can get sorted for 26, I think it has potential to turn into a deal for 2025. But I'm at the point where I think we're that desperate for 25 that I'd even be having a look at a guy like Lodge for 12 months. And I'm not a fan of him at all. But I think we're really desperate in that forward pack, in that front row, that I'd be looking at a 12-month contract for him and then hitting those props that are off contract for 26 really hard, Jordan.
Yeah, the Leo Thompson, without doubt, is a great young talent coming through. I think the problem will be the likes of the Bulldogs and the Roosters are going to blow anyone out of the market for someone like him. I agree with your sentiments on Fanua Pole. I think there's a lot of talk that he wants to go back to Melbourne for family reasons.
Yeah,
and his
I've
brothers,
heard it as well.
His
I've heard
brothers
the
down
Bulldogs,
there. Yeah, well, Gus is a massive fan of Fanua. He's been saying it for ages, so that is also another concern as well. I know the club is trying to re-sign him, and he wants to go to market. So that is a concern. Leo Thompson would be great. We do need 2 decent front rowers. I just don't know where we also really need another back rower as well. And there's
especially if Bateman doesn't come back. I don't think there's many people in the club who want Bateman to come back, but we don't have a right edge second rower at this point in time.
Do you target somebody like Teague Wilton?
You took the words right out of my mouth. Teague Wilton he comes off contract on the 1st November. Is he John Morris's nephew? Yeah. I would be going for Teague Wilton hard. He's in and out of the Sharks team. He's not consistent with getting a starting spot there. Even Britton Niokora comes off on the 1st of November as well. I would be looking at those 2 as my priorities for back row. There actually isn't a great deal of back rowers coming off on the 1st of November. So they would be the 2 that I would look at. And again, Sharks salary cap's going to be stretched pretty thin. So yeah, prop wise, I don't know where it's going to come from, but we need to find whether it's the UK. I'm always a big fan of the UK forward, but yeah, it's hard to see where this enforcer is going to come from.
When does Keon Pulamatangi come off contract? When's he available?
He's still contracted to the end of 2026, so he would be.
2 more years, yeah.
Uh, Kelly, any other positions? You spoke about prop a fair bit to start this conversation off. Any other areas you want to look at?
I want to sign Adam Elliott, but only because I want him to bring Millie to the club.
Yeah, another 2-for-1 deal, Kelly.
Yeah, 2-for-1 deal. I'm all about the 2-for-1s. It's, bargain basement. Um, Gosh, I don't know. Like looking at the players that are off contracts, like it is very slim pickings for next year. So yeah, Matt Lodge, Marty Tapau is another forward who's off contract for next
I
season,
think
but
I
I
think he
saw
actually
Jordan's face then.
I think Marty re-signed with Brisbane.
Yeah, that was
Don't
when Kevin was still there. I don't know if it actually got through before Madge took over.
Okay, I would also take him for 12 months. I know he's 35, um, but we are in a desperate spot for our forward pack.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The other
I think
like
we
a
also
lot of
need another centre.
yeah, a lot of the other forwards that are available for next year are really towards the end of their career, which probably isn't a bad thing. As we're saying, we are looking for someone really just to fill that gap, and that hopefully we can sign someone on the 1st of November for 26. But yeah, there's a lot of well-worn forwards that are available for next year, which is whether or not we can make the space for them is the question.
Well, Jordan's got rid of 5 of our players, so send him in with Richo on Monday morning. He can make that happen. And
Man, I'll get it done. They'll be gone by Tuesday next week.
um, now, a big conversation Steve and I had last week, and I think it scared Joel a little bit because he really did cut us off when Steve and I really started to discuss it quite heavily. Steve has the expectation next year that it is the top 8 or nothing.
That was
Um,
Steve's expectation for this year.
it was, but I think he's a little grumpier and a little bit more set in stone on it this year than even he was for the previous season just gone. So I thought I'd get your thoughts, a little bit of backup for me so that it's not just me arguing with Steve. I'm happy if you agree with Steve. Um, my expectation is where our roster currently sits, and even with a couple of changes, I think we're going to be struggling to get out of that bottom 4. If we can get out of that bottom 4, I think that's progress moving forward. The closer we get to that 8 is better progress. I will say, and no one actually mentioned him during the conversation we had. If we can get someone like Nelson Asofa Solomona, I think that makes a big difference heading into next season. I think a few little posts that we may have saw the other night, Jordan, suggesting that he may be moving on to a new chapter of his career. I think he'd make a big difference to our side.
100%. He's being very coy with his posts. You can read it one way or the other. He would transform our forward pack over an off season, without a doubt. If we could put him and Royce Hunt together, along with a few of our other younger forwards, he would make a massive difference, not just for his size and his aggro, but purely based on just his intent on the field and his presence on the field. Nelson would make a big difference. And I know he's got a connection with Benji, but if there was a way of making that happen, yeah, I would go for it within a heartbeat.
And before we get on to the expectations that you guys have for next season, I do want to talk a little bit about our new signings. Like, we're talking about wanting 3-4 more new players over this off season. We already have 5 new signings coming into the club next season. And I'm going to ask you guys, the question I want to ask you is a really easy answer. So I'm going to make it a little bit more difficult. The question is, which player are you most excited about of our new signings? Now, I didn't tell you I was going to do this to you before the pod started, but I'm going to rule one of them out because
I'm not going to say Law.
Jack Bird.
everybody has
Everyone,
the same.
absolutely Jack Bird.
Well, everyone has the same player they've got the highest expectations for, they're most excited about. So Luai is off the table. You can't talk about Luai because everyone's very excited about what he's going to bring to the club, and that makes for a very boring pod. Um, so we've got Taruva, we've got Skelton, we've got Greg Bird, and we've got Royce Hunt.
Greg Bird.
What did I say? Greg Bird? Wow.
We're going back in time.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a jump back.
Straight from
so
the
we've
bottom
got
of the
Jack
barrel
Bird.
out of their forwards.
Yeah, we've got Jack Bird.
I'll say
Rachel.
Skelton.
And which
You're going
Hunt?
Skelton? Why?
Only because I haven't watched much of him play, but a few of the games I've played, he runs the ball back hard and he hits hard in defence. And he's only a young fella coming through. So I'd like to see his progression coming through next year.
The thing I like about the Skelton signing was the comments Richo made about it on one of the podcasts he did, that they've gone back, they've identified a weakness. We're the worst side coming out of our own end in the competition. They've gone and found a guy who's sitting in, for the most part, sitting in reserve grade, who's stuck behind wingers at another club, who can contribute to fixing that area. So a targeted signing of a guy playing reserve grade to fix an area of need in our club, for me, speaks volumes about the change in recruitment at our club. In the past, I thought our club just signed whatever name, well, didn't sign, attempted to sign whatever big name came onto the market. We just threw as much cash as we had at that player. We didn't get them, but I didn't think there was any real planning around who we were targeting. To me, that Skelton signing shows a targeted signing and a plan around what we're trying to do. Kelly, out of those new recruits outside of Luai, who are you most excited about and why?
So for partly the reasons why what you just mentioned there is filling a need, I'm gonna go with Hunt. I follow a lot of rugby league supporters on Twitter, which is not always a great thing because some of them are very unhinged. But I do have quite a few Shark supporters that hover around my Twitter feed, and surprisingly, not usually when we sign a player, everyone's like, "Yeah, sweet, see you later, thanks for coming," kind of thing. And there were quite a number of Shark supporters who were quite disappointed that they were losing him. I then, once sort of the name started making the rounds, similar to what Rachel was saying, hadn't really watched a lot of his games prior to that, but then started to sort of take a bit more notice. And even though he does play small minutes, you can really see the difference, the impact that he makes when he does come on the field. So I think if Benji uses him well, let the guys, our trusted, heavy hitters tire out the defensive side or tire out the opposition in the first 20 minutes, bring Hunt on before halftime, then give him the halftime break, send him back out a little bit more in the second half, and then have our two starters come back and finish the game, I think is really going to help to make a difference.
See, that signing for me only makes a lot of sense if there's another prop. I think without a second prop signing, then that signing probably turns out to be a fairly poor signing. He's not the replacement for Steph. He's not the guy that's going to play decent minutes in the middle. So I think we need someone else. But if we get that someone else, the impact he provides is really something that we haven't had at this club in a long time. I think Marty Tapau, speaking about him again, was probably the last really high impact middle that we've had who could kind of play that role of short minutes, get in there, cause some damage to the defensive line, get a quick play the ball. If you have a look at Royce Hunt's play the balls, for a big guy, he gets a fairly quick play the ball, and Cronulla plays really good football off the back of his play the balls. There was a lot of tries they scored last year that came directly off the back of one of his play the balls. And for a big guy who does appear to get gassed fairly easy, I think defensively he's fairly sound in the middle as well. So for me, as long as we get another aggressive prop who can play decent minutes, then that Hunt signing becomes a really good signing. Jordan, Out of those guys, out of everyone bar Luai, who are you most excited about?
Not more of an excitement, but this is going to be one of my predictions, Gary. For you, I'll give you this one, and it was partly based on an interview I saw this afternoon. But I'm predicting Jack Bird will actually probably have his best year of rugby league that
It was
he's
a
had
good
in the
interview,
last
wasn't
five. It was a great interview, but I don't know. There's just something for me. I think he is going to break the curse of the what's the out to pasture players that we've signed in the past. I think he is actually going to provide some good quality football for us next year, and I think he's going to surprise a few people. I'm seriously predicting that Jack Bird will actually have his best year that he's had in the last few seasons, and he will be a very valuable signing for us, whether it be as a fill-in in certain areas. He mentioned he wants to play lock now that Kobe Hevington isn't looking like a possibility. I think he could possibly fill in that role and provide a bit of a competitive edge for us in that 13.
So do you expect to see him in that 13 role or in the centres?
Actually, I don't expect to see him in the centres. I think he'll be in the back row. If I think he's going to be used as a forward, I can't unless we pick up. Oh, now you got me thinking. If Dewey goes, he might end up in the centres, but I also think Taruva is going to start the season in centres. So it could go either way, but I'd prefer him to be in the forwards, in the back row or even in the 13.
Well, and there has been some talk around the club still on the lookout for a winger and still trying to sign a winger. So for me, that suggests that Taruva was kind of signed with that plan of playing in the centres. Rachel, do you think that's a role he could fill at the club as a centre, or do you see him primarily as a winger?
Well, we haven't really seen him play winger. I'd like to see how he goes in the centres, but I guess I'm not going to really know until we see what he puts out there. I really don't probably have an answer on that. I'm a bit concerned about our outside backs, so I think there's going to probably be a bit of changing to work out the best combinations for the team to see what's going to suit the team moving forward.
Now, I took Luai off the table on you guys and made you speak about the four other guys that we have signed. I'm going to give you each a chance now, though, to actually what it is you think Luai is going to bring across to our club, what you're most excited to see him provide for the West Tigers in 2025. I'll start with you, Kelly.
I think the thing I'm looking forward to the most is just his passion. Like, you cannot deny that he is an extremely passionate human being. And he doesn't care about getting people offside with the way he sort of shares that passion either. I find it really funny that prior to January last year, I used to think he was a bit of a wanker, but as soon as he signed, I was like, well, that's great. He's now our wanker, so that's totally fine. But I think it's just because he's not like it's not part of your team that you see it from a different angle. Whereas now, those posts, about people having to go to work the next morning after Origin and just all of the hype around the grand final and things like that. I think he handled himself really well with the interviews after the grand final. With the journos were really pushing to try to get something out of him about this could potentially be the last grand final you play in for a while or forever or whatever they were trying to say. But I think that just the way that I don't know, he's just got this aura about him, which, as I said, prior to January, I wasn't a massive fan of, but now I see him from a very different light.
Look, I don't only think it's the fact that he signed with the Tigers. I think he has matured a little bit. I think he's grown up a little bit, and a lot of that sort of loudmouth lair kind of attitude has gone down a little bit. He's still passionate. He still drives his teammates hard, but I think a fair bit of that sort of attitude that gets him offside with fans is being reduced, and especially his performances in State of Origin this year. I thought he did a great job at that level, and that's something we hadn't seen from him before. Rachel, what excites you about Jerome Luai coming across?
I love that he calls players out for mistakes, that he's not afraid to pull players up for
Even in
accountability.
the last 2 minutes of a grand final that you're about to win.
Yeah, I just love that he's ready to get in somebody's face and tell them to pull their head in or what they need to do. And I think our young fellas need a bloke like that who's going to tell them, just pull their head in. This is what you need to do. This is where you need to stand. This is what you know. I'm also interested to see how, if Bateman does come back, how Bateman will relate to Luai, because I think
Yeah,
there'll be
that's a very good point.
two bit of hotheads, two bit of egos going at it, and I'd like to see how that plays out.
We could see a repeat of the Galloway Gibbs couple.
But for me, that leadership style that he has, that very vocal leadership style, I think is going to really mesh well with Appy. Appy, for me, is a guy that leads by example. He goes out and puts it all out in the field, but I don't know that he really talks a lot. And I don't know whether he's really the guy to really give someone a rev up if they're not meeting the standards that the club's kind of setting. But Luai's that guy, so I think they'll complement each other really well. What's you're most excited about with Luai, Jordan?
Well, you mentioned it, Gary, that last 2 minutes in the grand final, for me, that was actually the whole thing of the grand final that stood out. When Lindsay Smith made that error and he was in his face and, he's basically telling him to, pull his head in, crack on, let's get on with it. But then he embraced him. Like, yeah, he scolded him, but then he embraced him. He's like, we've got this. And at the awards night, we had Talon De Silva next to us. And one of the guys at our table was having a good chat with him and whatnot. And he actually asked an interesting question. He said, how are you guys going to handle his intensity? And Talon probably gave the most mature and probably the most 100% answer that you'd actually want to hear from your young blokes. And his response was, hopefully we're all mature enough to understand that this guy has 4 rings and we don't. He knows what it takes and we need to listen to him.
Nice.
And that kind of response from a young bloke, for me, I just sat there and I just said to him, like, mate, crack a response. Like, that is what you want to hear, that you are going to be able to take what he has on the chin and go, you know what? He's been there. He's done that. He knows what it takes. If we want to be where he is, we need to take his leadership and follow. And I really believe his maturity, but his passion to win and want to succeed, I think is something in signings that we have missed for a long time. He's coming here, he's getting paid without a doubt. But my favourite article that he signed was actually by Chamis, is that he's sick of being Robin and he wants to be Batman. So I hope he is our Batman, and I will turn up to games as the Cape Crusader myself if that's what it takes. But yeah, I think we all agree his passion and his love for the game and his love to succeed is what excites us, and that's what we want to see on the field next year.
There was a really interesting article in the lead up to the grand final interview with Penrith Centre. I can't remember his name off the
Paul
top of my
Alamotti.
head. Yeah, I was drawing a blank, and he was saying how he gets a serve from Luai every game, but you could tell the respect that he has, and he was talking about the benefit he gets and how that's made him such a better player. And I thought that was really telling, because you get guys, and we've all played in sporting teams. You get those guys that kind of give you a bit of a rev up when you make a mistake, but they don't have the authority to do that. They don't have the respect to do that. And that article shows me that Luai has that respect of his teammates. And I guess the comments that you said from Talon kind of back that up as well. And hopefully we're going to have that you see, that the players see where that's coming from. It's about trying to get the best out of them. It's not about putting them down. And I think that's what he manages to do really well. And that's what I got from that article, is that it's not an attack. It's about building you up and holding you to the club standards. And I think that's going to be fantastic once he gets into the club. Now, as I said, Steve has the expectation that we will make the top 8. It's top 8 or bust for Steve. I'm going to ask you guys not what you think the club's goal should be, and because I think Steve kind of combines that with it, and his expectation is the club has to set the standard that they're going to make the top 8, and that's great. I agree fully with that. That's what our club needs to be doing. But I want to know where you think, having a look at our roster as it stands, and how you think we can make those changes over the off season, what you think or what your expectation is that we will finish next year. And I'll start with you, Rach. What's 2025 look like for you?
I put us finishing around 12th. I don't think we'll finish last. I think there will be improvement. But in terms of what I expect, I just expect combinations to improve in both attack and defence, and to finally get a little bit of structure coming through within the team. I think at times we've lacked structure this year, and that's probably come down to the amount of sin bins and injuries we've had. But I really want to see how we're progressing. I want to see those, like I said, those structures coming through. So it looks like we're actually building towards something. So that's my biggest expectation. We're building towards something in 2005 for 2026.
Kelly?
Or 2005 for 2026.
Kelly, your expectations for next year?
I would like us to fall somewhere between 9th and 13th. So anywhere in that sort of range. I'm not picking a specific number. 9 would be amazing. After all those years we used to get frustrated about finishing 9th. Like, I think we all dream of finishing 9th again. I think the big thing that is going to determine that is going to be the health of our squad. I'm not really sure how our depth is beyond our starting 17. The starting 17 sort of that have been put around by, everybody's doing their predicted round 1 teams already. And reading the comments, like, everybody thinks that the team on paper is great and that we have the opportunity to really, improve on what we had this year, which isn't hard, I suppose. But it is really going to depend on our key playmakers staying healthy because, depth does concern me.
And lastly, Jordan, what's your expectations for next year?
If we go in with the current squad we have, I believe the predictions are probably around 12th, 13th, 11th is probably accurate. If we can improve the forward pack, I actually have no doubt we could give the top 8 a red-hot crack. I understand Steve's sentiment about being in top 8 or bust, considering how many years of...
And it is only 50%, top 50% of the competition to get there.
Yeah, well, that's it. And, we look at what the Bulldogs have achieved in the space of 2 years. So I want top 8. I know we all do. Realistically, we're probably looking around that mark of the middle of the bottom end of the table. But I think if we can really improve the forward pack, we are in for a good chance of sneaking in that 7th or 8th spot. But I don't want it to... My expectation, the thing I actually want, I don't want to be 10 weeks out from the end of the season knowing...
Yeah, season over in May.
That's right. I would be happy if we could get to August, at the start of August, going, you know what? If we can string a few wins here together, we're in for a chance.
Yeah, I think it's probably a situation where if the season is over in May, that Benji's in a little bit of trouble as a coach. So I think it's really important that we do show good signs of improvement next season. Thanks for joining me tonight, guys. It's always hard. I know I'm keeping you guys up late. It's great for a bit of content to come out during the off season. Try and get you guys involved a little bit more as well moving forward in the pod. Maybe get you on for some episodes once the season starts next year as well, and possibly get you on again over the off season. So thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks all.
Gary.
Anytime, mate. Anytime.
And as I said earlier, the pre-season and off-season's the best time to be a West Tigers fan. Like, that's when the hope builds. That's when the excitement builds. So thanks for listening, everyone. Have a good night.